Hi, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice, and today I'm talking about a game called Century: A New World. It's the third game in a trilogy, which started out with Century Spice Road and was followed up with Century Eastern Wonders. I've already reviewed both of those games. There'll be links in the description of this video to those reviews if you'd like to go watch those. Today I'm going to be talking about the third game. Each of these games is basically about trading in different historical periods, and so the third game takes us a little bit forward in time from the previous two and has us trading in the new world. And so it is a worker placement game, and it has some interesting things going on in it. So I'll show you how the game works, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my thoughts on it. Okay, so this is how you set up a game of Century: A New World, more or less. You're going to actually have one of these boards for each player, but then you have this central board and some cards at the top, and you've got your various trade goods over here represented by different colored cubes. This board is actually made up of 4 of these smaller boards. So you're going to set up these 3 boards the way they are, but this 4th board you could swap out for one of these other boards for some variety. On your player board, you're going to have 10 slots over here. These 10 squares are slots for resources, so you have your trade goods there. You're going to have 3 spots where you can put bonus tiles, which you claim up here. And you're going to have some workers. You have these little wooden guys. These are your workers that you send out to do various things. So the object of the game is to get these cards, which are worth points at the end of the game. As you can see, they each have a number here, which is the number of points that it's worth. In order to claim this card, you need to be able to cash in these cubes here at the bottom. So for this card, you would need a red cube and 2 green cubes. There's also some bonuses that you get for having this card, and those bonuses are shown at the top here. And I'll get into those a little bit later because it's one of the more complex aspects of the game. But basically, what you need to understand is that you're trying to get these cards because they're worth points. The game will end once someone has gotten their 8th point card, and then you finish out the round so that everyone has an equal number of turns. And then whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. So what you do on your turn is basically one of 2 things. You can either send some of your workers out onto the board to do work, or you can rest, which lets you take all of your workers off of the board back to your player board so that you have them available to send out again. Sending workers out to a space basically depends on what the space is how many workers you have to send. So you'll notice like this space right here has this little symbol of a guy, and it has the number 1 in it. So you need to send 1 worker there in order to be able to visit that space. So when you visit this space, you're going to do the action on the space. In this case, this action lets you get 2 yellow cubes that you can add to your supply. Now these cubes of course represent different trade goods. I can't remember offhand what each of the goods is supposed to be, but it is important to know that yellow cubes have the lowest value, and then red cubes are more valuable than them, green cubes are more valuable than them, and brown cubes are the most valuable. So they're varying values in ascending order like so. You can send a couple of guys to a place like this, which has the number 2 in the symbol of the guy, in order to use its action, which in this case is to just generate a green cube. You could send people to this spot, which lets you upgrade some of your cubes. So going to this spot lets you, like, for example, take a yellow cube and swap it out for a red cube, having upgraded it once. Now there's 2 cubes displayed here, so you're upgrading twice. So you could upgrade a second yellow cube for another red cube, or you could take that red cube that you just upgraded and swap it out for a green cube. So you can, in effect, upgrade 2 cubes once each, or 1 cube twice. And then there's locations down here, like for example this location, which is a trade location. You go there and it lets you trade a green cube, in this case, for 2 red cubes. So you could do that, and that lets you, just manipulate what goods you have so that you can get the right combination of goods to claim these cards. In order to claim these cards, you have to send someone to one of these top 4 locations, which are called forts. So as you can see, like this location right here just requires 1 person, so I can send 1 guy there. When I go there, I'm going to be able to trade in these cubes if I have them, a yellow, a green, and a brown, to get this card. This card will give me 4 points at the end of the game. I'm just going to keep it over here by my player board, and I'm going to make sure that this top part of the card remains visible because, again, the top part of the card is important for bonuses during the game. I'm also, because I went to this fort, going to be able to get a bonus tile. I take the top one from the stack. If I had gone to one of these 2 forts, you can see that each of these forts has 2 stacks, so I could take either of the top ones. But since I went here, I'm going to get this. This is going to be a bonus tile. It's going to go there. As you can see, I can have a maximum of 3 bonus tiles. So once I have 3 bonus tiles, I can't pick up any more. All right. So that's basically what's going to happen. Now, obviously, other people are playing, so they're going to be interacting with me. And some of the ways that you interact with each other is, for example, let's say we have the pink player. And the pink player wants to go to this spot where I have a worker. But because I already have a worker there, whereas I only had to put 1 worker there, because that was the value in the symbol there, the pink player is going to have to send 2 workers. They have to send 1 more worker than I have. And when they do that, they're going to bump my worker out of there, sending them back to my player board, which means I now have a worker available to send somewhere else, like perhaps right there. Maybe the white player is going to come along a little bit later, and they're going to want to go to this spot. So they can do that. But because the pink player has 2 workers there, they're going to have to send 3 workers there and bump the pink player's workers out. So that's one of the ways that you interact with each other. Now, I showed you getting one of these cards. When you get one of those cards, you slide over any cards to the right of it, and another card comes off the top of the deck. And you always flip over the top card of the deck so people can see what's coming up. And another big part of the game, those are basically the basics of the game, but the next big thing is those bonuses on the tops of these cards and how they affect gameplay. So first of all, you have these symbols. These are called New World symbols. And so the New World symbols don't do anything on their own, but they interact with these bonus tiles. So for example, this bonus tile tells you at the end of the game, you're going to get 3 points for each compass and each of these dream catchers. So you can see this card gives me a dream catcher, and here is a card that gives me a compass. So these 2 cards together with this bonus token will be 3 points at the end of the game. But if I were to pick up this card as well, which is another dream catcher, and let's see if I can find another compass in here real quick. Yep. So if I were to have all 4 of these cards at the end of the game and this token, then that's worth 6 points. So each instance of the symbols shown on here is worth the points that are shown. So that's what some of these do. This token that I picked up earlier is just worth a flat 3 points. This token right here is worth 1 point for every 2 workers you have at the end of the game, and there are ways you can get more workers. And so that's kind of the gist of what these do, and it's more or less the gist of why these symbols are important. But on each of these cards, you'll see that I also have some other symbols here, and so let me show you what those do. This is the simplest one. When you pick up a card that has these symbols up here, it's just giving you more workers. So you have your workers on the board. When you rest, the workers all come off of the board and they go back to your little player board over here. But you also have some extra workers off to the side. And so when you get one of these cards, you would take 2 of those extra workers and put them on your board. They're ready to go. You can use them now for the rest of the game. You have this symbol. And so what this is showing, there's a few different ways that this could show up. Here's 2 examples of kind of the same thing. Here you see a symbol, and you see a symbol of a guy with a -1. So these symbols here are on spaces on the board. So for example, one of these boards I'm not using, you can see that all of these have this symbol of like two people shaking hands. And so this symbol that's the same symbol that's right here. So if I have this card, then anytime I send workers to one of these places that has that symbol, I can send one fewer workers. That's what that means. So like to go here would only cost one worker. To go here would still cost one worker because you always have to send a minimum of one worker. But in a situation where, for example, there's already one worker here from another player, and now as the blue player, I want to send a worker there. I can do that by only sending one worker. Normally I'd have to send two because there's already someone there, but I can just send one if I have this card because it reduces the number of workers I need to send. So that's what that symbol does. Let me see if I can find... Okay, here's the other one. So this one has a symbol and it has a plus and then a cube. So some of the spots on the board, for example, I'll just show you on this one. So for example, this spot right here, which lets you generate a red cube, has that symbol of some meat. So if I have this card, I've already claimed this point card, anytime I send someone to this spot, in addition to whatever I normally get there, which in this case is a red cube, I get an additional red cube. Okay, and there's a variety of cards like this that give you an extra cube every time you go to a place with that symbol. And then finally we have these. So some of these cards will have this symbol right here, and this is basically indicating these. So you'll notice these spots here, these 6 spots here, these 2 spots down here, all have these little tiles, which have like a piece of board with a drawing on it. So this is effectively closing this spot. As long as this tile is here, nobody can send workers to this spot. But when you claim one of these point cards that has this symbol here, it lets you take any one of these tiles off of the board. So for example, I could take this one. So now this is going to go to me. It means that this spot is open now. People can send workers there to do that action. And this symbol is going to be a part of my collection of symbols at the end of the game. So for example, if I had this card at the end of the game and I had this tile, I have 2 hammers. If I also had this bonus tile, those 2 hammers are worth 3 points. So that's what that does. As you can see, there's a variety of these tiles, these planks with some drawing on them. You have the different New World symbols. You have this one, which just gives you a green cube and a red cube as soon as you get it. You have this one, which gives you another worker as soon as you get it. And you have this one, which is just worth 3 points at the end of the game. So there's a variety of those. And again, when you get one of these cards, you get to pick up any one of those. It opens up that spot and it gives you whatever's on that tile. So that's basically the gist of the game. Again, the game really revolves around getting the right combination of cubes to pick up these point cards, which are going to be worth points at the end of the game. But at the same time, you're also getting these bonus tiles, which will make it so you want to get certain combinations of those symbols, so that those symbols can be worth points at the end of the game. And of course, you're doing things that might get you, other little bonuses, right? So like these things that let you send fewer workers out, these things which give you more workers, these things that give you cubes when you send workers to certain places, etc. But that's basically how the game works. We'll go back up top and I'll give you my thoughts on it. All right, so that's a pretty good overview, I think, of Century: A New World. As you can see, it's very much a worker placement game. It's all about assigning your workers to different places to get different benefits, to do those different actions associated with those different placements. So that's very interesting. One of the things that I like overall about this trilogy of games is that each one is essentially about the same thing, which is getting a certain combination of these different colored cubes and then trading in those cubes for points. But each game gets you there in a really different way. So you have Century Spice Road, which is all about that hand management. It's essentially a very light engine building game. You have Eastern Wonders, which is kind of more about building routes, moving around from island to island. And now you have a game that's all about worker placement. I like that the game is pretty simple. On your turn, you're just going to put workers out, or you're going to take all your workers back. I like how you can send workers to spots that other people have already sent their workers, as long as you send one more worker than they did. And I like how that kicks their workers back to them. When that happens to you, it always feels good, because now I've got more workers to work with. So you kind of have to evaluate that as you play. Do I want to send my workers to somewhere where there already are workers, because that's the spot I really need to go right now? But if I do that, I am effectively helping out my opponent, because I'm giving him some workers to keep working with, so he doesn't have to rest as often. So that's really interesting. I like that. It creates some very interesting choices in the game. The point cards in this game overall are worth fewer points, but they also require fewer cubes than, say, in Eastern Wonders or Spice Road. So that means you're picking up those cards a lot more often, because you can get the combinations of cubes that you need more quickly. So you're picking up those cards more often. You need more of them to trigger the end of the game. But I think that's a nice system, because each of those cards also has those bonuses. They have those symbols that, when combined with the right bonus tiles, can give you points at the end of the game. And then they also have those other bonuses that help you out during the game, letting you send workers somewhere letting you send fewer workers somewhere, giving you an extra bonus when you send workers to particular places, and things like that. So that's pretty cool. I like how there's a few different things to sort of manage as you play the game. You are trying to get those point cards for their point values. Some of them are worth a little more than others, so they're all kind of in a lower range, but some of them are worth a little more than others. So you could aim for the more valuable cards. You could just aim to pick up as many cards as you can, as quickly as you can. Try to blitz through and end the game before anyone else can really catch up to you. So there's a couple of strategies there. But also you can look at, how do I maximize those symbols with the bonus tiles? If I'm getting 3 points for every combination of hammer and compass I have, then am I going to try to aim for point cards that will give me more hammers and compasses, for example? You can also go for those point cards that are going to give you more workers, because obviously if you have more workers, you can get more accomplished in between those turns where you just have to rest and take all your workers back. So yeah, it's interesting. Going for more workers is an obvious strategy, but there's other cards that let you go places with fewer workers, or that give you extra resources when you send workers to specific places. Those are also really useful. So if you get kind of edged out of all the cards that would give you extra workers, there's other viable strategies there. So I like the game overall. I think it's a pretty simple worker placement game. There's a little bit of nuance there with those extra bonuses that you get from the cards, but overall it's pretty simple. You just, on your turn, you send workers somewhere, you do the thing on that spot. When you run out of workers, you bring them all home. It's pretty simple, straightforward. There's good player interaction. Going to places that you think other people might want to go to kind of block them, but it doesn't really block them. It just makes it more expensive for them to go there. So I like that player interaction, because it is interaction, but it doesn't feel super mean, because, if I go somewhere because I think you want to go there, I'm not preventing you from going there altogether. I'm just making it a little more expensive for you. If you kick me out of a spot, you're actually doing me a favor, so that doesn't feel mean. So yeah, I like it. I like that there's that player interaction without any real meanness in it. And yeah, again, it's just like all the games so far in the Century trilogy it's really easy to teach and understand the basics of the game. And I think compared to like Spice Road, for example, I feel like the strategies here are, I don't know, just a little bit easier to grasp. I think as far as just understanding how to play the game effectively, Spice Road is still kind of the most challenging, which is odd because it's simultaneously the most simple game. But this one it's easy to pick up, easy to understand. The strategies are relatively easy to understand, and yet there's a good amount of nuance to them so that you feel like you can pursue different strategies and you're not stuck on just one track. So those are my thoughts on Century A New World. Again, I've already reviewed Spice Road. I've already reviewed Eastern Wonders. There are links to those videos in the description to this one. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about all the ways you can combine these games, which is a really interesting thing about the Century Trilogy, is you can do every possible combination of these games as its own sort of separate game. So you can come back and I will be talking about that and really helping also to break down like what are the pros and cons of these different games when taken all together. Why might you prefer one over another? So again, my name is Nathan. This is Nice at Dice. Thank you so much for watching, and you enjoy the rest of your day.